Guys, welcome back to Grown-Us. My name is Catherine, a grown-ass woman, or at least that's what I like to tell men. As promised, this episode we talk about friendship. I am really sorry that it's taken me this long to upload, but it's because friendship is a very difficult or touchy subject for me, and it's because I have struggled with friendship in my life. It's been difficult in that one, making friends isn't one of my strongest traits, and I realized that it comes from a point of mistrust, a history of mistrust. And this mistrust has been cultivated in me for years by just experience with people, seeing other people go through things that I did not want to go through, and particularly this advice from my parents. My parents have always taught me never to trust anyone, not even them. I have always been told to only trust myself and to trust God. And so making friends was always difficult for me because I think friendship thrives on trust. It is built on trust, I believe. And so, making friends was always difficult for me because of this. The other thing is communication. My friends, for a while, but this was a while back, they've always said that I never call or text or just reach out in general. But it's because I always thought that it was unnecessary. I recently realized that this came from a point of me not wanting to become or to seem vulnerable to anyone or to myself. I did not want to show the vulnerable side of me. So I'd never call anyone if there's nothing very important to discuss. Then I'd never call or visit and so not only was the whole process of making a friend difficult for me, but keeping the friendship was also a huge and tiring and task for me that I wasn't ready to go through or to do. And it's like there was always this tension in me. Like my guard was always up. I was constantly trying to protect myself, and from what really I have no idea. Because if these are my friends and not my enemies, then what was I constantly protecting myself from? And if I wasn't going to allow myself to be vulnerable with my friends or with myself, then who was I going to get vulnerable with? So in those 2 weeks, as I was thinking about this episode, I also realized something else. I have a toxic trait of distancing myself from friends or from people when they do something wrong to me, or when they portray traits that I do not particularly like. And this has cost me so many good friends or friendships. Or when I also realized that I have a trait or something I think is not likable, I'm going to distance myself from that person. When I think that mtu anakaa ni kama hapendi this and this, or this person doesn't seem to like this and this about me. Not that this person has not said anything about it, it's just me overthinking and coming up with these conclusions, jumping into conclusions about things. And so I am going to decide that I'm not really likable, and so maybe I shall stay away before this person realizes this weakness about me and then they leave me, right? So I was always so afraid of being left. I think sijui ilitoka wapi, but so I'd leave people before they get a chance to leave me. Yeah, and this also I realized came from me not letting myself get vulnerable with anyone. Leaving people before they get a chance to leave me, or before they got a chance to see and point out my weaknesses to me, because I never wanted to point out my weaknesses to myself. I never wanted anyone else to point out my weaknesses to me. Like, I consciously or subconsciously knew of these weaknesses, but I'd never admit to them, and I'd never want anyone else to point them out to me. And from this, you realize that I had not really accepted myself as I am. I had not accepted my imperfections and my flaws. And if I couldn't accept my own flaws and my own imperfections, then how would I be able to accept others with their imperfections and their flaws? And so I've tried to be vulnerable and open with a few of my friends recently, and I realized that I wasn't the only one who's struggling with this, or who has this toxic trait of distancing themselves from people or cutting people off because of very minute and minor things. Yeah, and as much as we keep preaching the whole idea of cutting people off and maintaining and prioritizing our peace, I think to some extent we are overdoing it. Like, tumepita hiyo level yenye tulifaa kufika. Because I mean, yes, cut people off, but if only they are truly pulling you down, or they are really affecting your life negatively. You feel like they're draining you and you're not really getting anything from them, right? I think we should be intentional and conscious when we decide to cut people off. Weigh some things, right? It doesn't really make sense to cut someone off because of this little thing that you do not like about them. Na unakumbuka pia wewe mwenyewe you have these things, or this list of things that you do not like about yourself. Can you cut yourself off? I don't think you can. So I think we should tolerate people more. We should be patient with people more. Be patient with ourselves more. Tolerate ourselves more. Be kind with ourselves and with other people. Because we all have flaws, we all have imperfections, we all have toxic traits. And if we decide to cut people off based off on this, then we might as well all just stay alone, stay away from each other. Because as I thought of this is what I had in mind. This is what I realized I was doing. I'd realized this thing about myself that is not likable, and so I'd distance myself from people. I'd realize this thing that is not likable about someone, and I'd decide they should distance themselves from me, or I should distance myself from them. And so it was like I wanted to distance myself from people to become perfect, and for people to also stay away from me, work on themselves and become perfect, then we can meet each other tukiwa perfect, and then we can become perfect friends. Which I think is not possible because we are not perfect. We are constantly growing. We are constantly realizing or figuring out who we are, and we do not live in a utopia. So nothing is really perfect, and if we decide to wait for all of us to be perfect so that we can become friends, we might as well wait forever. Yeah. And so I think we should call ourselves out kindly and patiently. Call our friends out kindly and patiently as well when we see these shades that we do not like, or when they've done something wrong to us. I think this is where communication comes in. Let us let ourselves have these talks with each other, of course with open minds and hearts, because sometimes, most of the time, we do not like when these things are pointed out, because at us we don't like pointing them out to ourselves. So I think we need to relax, chill, and listen to ourselves and listen to our friends. At the same time, speak to ourselves and speak to our friends so that we can figure these things out. Yeah? And when we point out these toxic traits to ourselves and to our friends, then we become conscious and aware about them. And when we are, we can be able to work on them every day. Yeah? Because there is no point, hakuna haja ya ku lose our friendship based off of these traits that we can work on, that we can change, and try to become better friends and try to become better people. Let us allow ourselves to be vulnerable with ourselves, with our friends. Yeah? Because if these people are our friends, then it means that we trust them. And so we can also be vulnerable around them. As we have these talks, as we have these thoughts, let us not judge ourselves. Let us not judge others. Try to open and kind and patient and empathetic. Yeah? Right. So let us be friends if we call each other friends. So that's it for today. The topic friendship is still going to go on in the next episode. I think it's going to be a series. Yes, it's going to be a series. So we go on in the next episode with friendship. Thank you so much for listening. I'd really like to hear your thoughts about this episode and about Jonas in general. So send me that voice note and that message button, or you can also DM me on Instagram at Jonas Podcast. Thank you so much for your feedback on the previous episode. Yeah, so till next time, keep growing, be kind. Lots of love from me. Bye.